So I think this image really speaks to my feelings about 2020. Anyone else feeling this? How about this? So what does it mean to survive 2020? Well, in recognition of all those who did not survive, and for the many who suffered greatly, it goes without saying that this past year was horrific. But I would like to suggest that in the devastation of this past year, we have been granted an opportunity. While 2020 forced us to deal with uncertainty and relinquish control, it has also given us the chance to reinvent ourselves, to find our personal strengths and take them forward into the future. I'm talking about abilities that we already have within ourselves that we often don't recognize until such a time as we need them. Today, I would like to share with you some of the strengths that I discovered this past year. Now, some of you may have been there and done that, but for others, perhaps, this will be an opportunity for you to think about your personal strengths. Like many of you, I entered 2020 with great hopes. It was a brand new year, a new decade, and time for a fresh start. But I was also entering the year with many of my old habits and mindsets. I didn't yet realize how the year would truly shake things up, that I'd have to rethink and revisit many of my old notions and ideals. As a UMBC teacher, advisor, and program director, I'm used to being overly prepared. But in March 2020, that all got trashed. I had to scramble to redo all of my courses. I threw together video recordings, online activities. I had to attend training sessions, learning new tools and technologies. I had to create a sense of community. This was outside of my comfort zone, and I felt totally overwhelmed and stressed out. It was like the sky was falling down on me. But I didn't have time to panic. I had to get on board and forge ahead. Of course, this didn't always go as planned. I really hated talking to a screen full of gray silhouettes. And not surprisingly, many of my hastily thrown together activities failed miserably. It was devastating and soul-crushing, especially because teaching was something I truly loved. But because of this, having gone through this crazy pivot, I saw that failing wasn't actually catastrophic. In fact, in the long run, many of the things that I ended up with were actually better than what I originally planned. I came up with new and different ways of teaching. I spent time creating that sense of community, and I also was able to give myself a bit more grace. I learned to recognize the benefits of flexibility and how to let go of some of that control I had been grasping so tightly. Now, while I never want to go through that kind of upheaval again, I am grateful for the opportunity to see that this newfound flexibility could not only keep me afloat, but actually raise me up. Now, in addition to coming up with new ways to teach, I also need to find new ways to connect with my students outside of classes. Now, I'm a problem solver. I consider that one of my defining characteristics, and it served me well in my job. For the past 17 years, I have been in a position to hear from many students, some I know well, and some I've never met before. And I've used these skills to help them solve their problems. However, when 2020 happened, I was inundated with desperate emails from my students, and I realized I just had to stop and listen. A young woman who was fleeing a domestic violence situation with 3 small children. Another whose grandparent had just died from COVID and who was taking care of a sick father. A homeless student who was logging in from their car in the parking lot, and so many others who didn't have the money to pay for books, let alone tuition for the semester. I felt hopeless. I didn't know how to solve their problems. There was no easy fix. I struggled over every email, trying to find just the right words, and even then, not knowing if what I said was helpful. I'm sure that many of my messages completely missed the mark, and others went out into the void. But once in a while, I would get a reply just thanking me for responding, for paying attention, for listening. I finally understood that what I was dealing with was an inherently unfixable problem. What I wanted was to solve their problems, but what they needed was to be heard, to be recognized, and for their situations to be taken seriously. Listening gave me the opportunity to see beyond those gray silhouettes. I am grateful for the opportunity to see and hear more clearly not only what I can do to impact my students, but how each one of them have impacted me. Now, this past year has taught me to welcome uncertainty, embrace change, and listen more fully. I'm learning to accept that I do not have, nor do I need to have, ultimate control, and that failure is not defeat, but rather an opportunity. This way, we can take our greatest challenges and move forward with renewed skills and strength. Now, I have to admit that all of this is still a work in progress and part of my ongoing story. I haven't yet mastered all of these skills, and I don't always remember to use them. I know, though, that they are there for me, and I'm grateful for having found them among the rubble of the past year. Saying that 2020 was a tough year is an obvious understatement, but it is in the past, and it is now time to move forward. And so, like a phoenix reborn, we too have the opportunity to emerge from this last year, gather our strength, and reinvent ourselves as we rise from the ashes of 2020. Thank you.